It's time for the Fanatic Flyers pregame show on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Here's Jason Martinez and Brian Smith.
That's right. It's time for Philadelphia Flyers hockey as the Flyers. The gauntlet continues. I guess this is the unofficial second half of the gauntlet.
Yes, it is.
We're, 4 games into the 7?
You can call it the official second half of it.
I can? Okay.
It's a mathematical second half. That's correct.
It's a mathematical certainty is what you're saying. Okay. What hasn't been a certainty, Brian, it's Brian Smith, Jason Martinez, Chris Terry, and I think will join us in a moment. But what hasn't been a certainty is the Flyers able to beat this Bruins team. This team has really had their number over the last couple of seasons, but today be a great time to buck that trend. I'd love to get a tweet today from our buddy John Garber about the Flyers' revenge tour with a win today here against Boston.
Absolutely. It'd be perfect timing, wouldn't it? This is the only franchise that the Flyers have an all-time losing record against. I'm fairly certain. And if there is another one, it's Vegas, but I wouldn't really count them. But obviously the Flyers had their issues with Boston in the 70s leading up to the 74 Cup. But, those are entirely different people. And we just happen to be wearing the same uniform, so it doesn't have much to do with what's going on right now. But, Boston's been, they've had certain players over the past few years that have been Flyer killers. Bergeron was not easy to deal with, and now that he's done, it's David Pastrnak who has been a real pain in the Flyers' side. So, they've certainly had their share of issues with them. This was, again, a Boston team that a lot of folks didn't think was going to be where they are right now. You talk about the Flyers being a surprise. Well, Boston kind of is too. It's just a little bit lesser noticed because they were so good last year. It's been an interesting dynamic here this season, but this is a day where the Flyers would love to come in here and grab a couple of points against this number one team in the East.
Yeah, the all-time record, 76 wins for the Flyers, 120 losses, 21 ties. 623 goals for all-time, 729 allowed. And you mentioned Pastrnak, and I thought the Flyers did a good job against Pastrnak last week. He only had 2 shots on goal and an assist in that 6-5 game, Bri. But he's only gone back-to-back games without a point 3 other times this year, and he didn't have a point in the last game, but the game prior he had a hat trick. So he's going to have something to say about this game today. Flyers got to be diligent when he's on the ice once again.
There's no question. This is a team against which they need to, again, play a simple defensive game and let the game come to them. They don't want to force things against this team because, again, it's the similar situation to Carolina where you make a mistake and it's in the back of your net before you know it. The Carolina game was, and really a couple of these games in this stretch have been like this, but they were games that were better games for the Flyers than the result might have shown. And when you look at that Carolina game, I mean, it was just 2 mistakes for the Flyers that ended up in the back of their net. They did dodge a couple of other bullets, but the things that led to the Carolina goals were preventable, and they're the same sort of things that are preventable here today against this Boston team. That again, it's not a team that has certainly been one to go on any sort of losing streak or anything like that this year. So they're certainly dangerous. And the good thing for the Flyers is that game against Toronto here last week is probably a perfect example of how to play them. So hopefully they can duplicate that effort here today.
Yeah, Jim Montgomery was the Jack Adams winner a year ago with the Boston Bruins with that historical season that they had. And I think he's done as good and maybe even a better job this year considering the guy that he lost in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Bergeron.
Yeah, and again, just look at James Van Riemsdyk. I mean, this is just that small example. He was here last year, and there certainly was not a spot for him in terms of where this team was going and where he is in his career. And it was very easy to look at his year last year and think, okay, he's on his way to retirement. But he signs a 1-year deal with this Boston team and has just flourished with them. It's certainly not anything I don't think anybody thought they would see out of this particular signing that Boston made. You kind of looked at him as, okay, he's going to be a depth guy, and what's he going to do for Boston? Just kind of come in there and provide some some veteran leadership maybe to a team that already has a ton of it, and just some depth scoring. But he's come out here this season and really been a better contributor, I think, than a lot of folks thought he'd be.
No question about it. One of the big storylines over the last week has obviously been the healthy scratching of Sean Couturier. Back-to-back games, Tuesday's game here at Wells Fargo Center, and then on Thursday against the Carolina Hurricanes. Flyers did grab 3 of a possible 4 points in those games, but it looks like he's going to return to the lineup today. And Smitty, we talk about the weight of the captaincy. Now, Sean Couturier's first game as the captain of the Flyers was on the 15th of Toronto. By the way, I don't buy into any of this. I think this is just happenstance, but I'll bring it up anyway. 14 games that he's played, he's got 3 assists, 0 goals, minus 13, and averaged 14 minutes and 31 seconds of ice time. I don't think it has anything to do with the captaincy. I think it has to do with the fact that he had burned the candle at both ends with a lot of playing time earlier this season.
Yeah, I don't think it has a thing to do with a C on his chest, because he was already nothing changed when they sewed a C on his jersey. It wasn't like there was a controversy that quashed or anything like that. In fact, all of us around the team were kind of like, what? we didn't expect it.
You're naming what? What is that again?
Yeah, because we thought that this was going to be something that happened next year. So I don't think it has anything to do with it. I don't know what exactly the issue might be. The one thing that does surprise me is that the only thing that surprises me about the timing is that after it happened, now we're drifting into these discussions that we are assuming are the case of accountability and how he's evaluating how he's playing versus how the coaches are. That part of it surprises me a little bit, but it would surprise me if he wasn't the captain, to be honest. But again, back in the lineup tonight, it's taking line rushes with Noah Cates and Bobby Brink. I'm sorry, Ole Licksell, not Bobby Brink. Noah Cates and Ole Licksell. So, he's not moved up really far in the lineup, at least not to start the game. But the way things go here, second period, you see guys moving up and down all the time. So we'll see what his response is tonight. It's certainly going to be interesting to watch, and whether or not he does get moved up the lineup as the night goes on.
Before we jumped on our virtual studio to do the streaming show and this pregame show, you said, hold on, I'm rebooting. Sometimes you need a reboot. You know what I mean? You need to reboot the system. It's one that he didn't want, a reboot, but he got a reboot. And I think he'll take that now and go, okay, I got to move forward.
Yeah.
And not even make this a decision going forward.
And again, the more that you look back on this and try to figure out what's going on, because we don't get it. I mean, you and I and a lot of folks that cover the team were surprised by this. And the more I look back on it, the more I'm thinking that it has to do with off-ice discussions more than anything that he's doing on the ice. Yeah, they do want to get him going, but I think that they probably would have just kept playing him to get him going. But I feel like there was some kind of discussion that what was mentioned on Hockey and Hounds this week where he thought he was doing fine and the coaches didn't. And I think that might have been the thing that pushed it over the edge to a healthy scratch scenario. So, that's why I think this is, again, a bit of a surprise in that regard. But like you said, everybody needs a reboot now and then. And maybe that's why, we're now clear and he's going to go back out there and get another shot this time.
Yeah, look, I in all my years covering sports, I think close to 25 or 30 at this point, can't even keep track. These things happen quite often where a player and a coach disagree about a player's game and the way they're playing or what they're doing, what they need to do more of or what they need to do less of. Player will say, well, I need you to be up in the play more and be more offensive. That's the coach saying. The player's going, well, I need you to put me with some players that can play offensive. Iron sharpens iron in pro sports, and everybody's here to do a job. I think a lot of times some people look at it really pragmatically and say, oh, they disagree. They're headed for divorce. That's not the case.
Yeah, no, it's not. And again, remember just Couturier's history himself. A a defensive forward role player for the first half of his career until one day he went to Dave Hackstall, I think it was, and said, I want a bigger role. And next thing you know, he's a 75-point player and he wins the Selkie. So it does have a little bit to do there with, who's around him and what his role is and things like that. So there is that. But, it's interesting at this point in his career because the Flyers are trying to get into a playoff spot. They're trying to cement their spot and, contribute to the growth of the younger players. And they're putting the guys out there that are giving them the best shot to do that in the coach's eyes. But the difference now is that Couturier hasn't been in that group because, again, we look at the stats and everything. There's one goal in this last 27, all that sort of thing, I think is what the number is. So, there is something going on there, but that's the difference now in that, when it doesn't come in terms of offense, you get knocked down the lineup and, then it maybe kind of snowballs on you a little bit.
Yeah, and you start going, is it the chicken or the egg? What came first? The lack of production came with moving down in the lineup and less usage, or was it the other way around? Always something to debate, but he is back in today. He gets the reboot. Let us take a reboot. We'll come back, get you ready for Flyers, Bruins, a very, very important weekend of hockey here at Wells Fargo Center. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
Rivers Sportsbook is your home for
Big Al.
You can experience the thrill of betting on the sports you love.
Yeah, I had we had Danny on.
The Fanatic.
Back live at the Wells Fargo Center for what is an enormous weekend of hockey as the Flyers take on the Boston Bruins today. The Florida Panthers tomorrow at 6. By the way, Florida in action tonight at 8 o'clock at Madison Square Garden. So significantly less turnaround time for them in a back-to-back, and they have to travel not far. It is New York to Philadelphia. Flyers, 79 points through 70 games, and now it's the Washington Capitals knocking on the door. Game in hand and 77 points. Chris Therien joins us now. And Bundy, the second half of the gauntlet is here, and a good time to grab a couple points against a team that's been a really tough out for the Flyers the last number of years.
Yeah, you know what, Jason? They've been a team. Boy, I think it goes back farther than that. The Flyers have had a couple wins over the years, but, man, this is almost a decade, right, that the Boston Bruins have kind of dominated this Flyers team over and over. I tell you what, I thought the Flyers had a moral victory last Saturday in Boston. We don't like that term, and I don't, but they did play well. They got themselves back on track for a good game in Carolina the other night. But this is a game tonight. Like, Boston's not playing well right now, and they haven't been, I don't think, for about 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks. I mean, if you're going to get them, this is a time to get them if you're the Flyers. And, we've been talking to Danny. Team losing overtime the other night, but a very satisfying point. You want the two, but the team felt good about it. So I think carrying that momentum in here tonight or this afternoon to this game is going to be paramount for this Flyer team. But you have to have an attitude in your mind that you're not scared of this Boston team or intimidated by them. And the Hall of Fame weekend game over a month ago, the Flyers looked intimidated by this team. and the game was over before you knew it. It was 4 or 5-0, and that was it. But again, Boston can score in bunches. They have players that this current Flyer defense core has struggled mightily against. Pasternak being that main guy, and Marchand. But again, this is a game for me that is about the start of the hockey game, and executing your will upon Boston. Don't wait for them. Enough is enough with this team. Like, they're good.
Yeah.
Like, enough's enough. Come out with an attitude. Like, come out and punch them right in the mouth, at the beginning of the game, and make it miserable for this team. But they don't do that. They come out here and they try to play a skill game with Boston. You're going to lose. And you're going to lose every time until the roster flips and it gets to where Danny and Jonesy need it to be. But right now, just muck this thing up. Make it a mess out there today for this team. And you know what? That's what the Flyers have done this year. But don't wait around. I'm sick and tired of this Bruins team, to be honest with you. I really am.
Enough is enough. I agree. That is the statement of the pregame show. Go ahead, Smitty.
I mean, I was curious about your perspective from a player's side of things on scoring that first goal. I mean, obviously we got the data. The record's much better, and it's clear the Flyers can play from behind against good teams. They've done it this year, but how much of a burst of wind in that sails is it for this bench when you come out and you get a goal early against a team like this versus being the one to give it up?
It's huge, and it just lends to exactly what I said. It just changes the temperament of the team. When you get a lead, you feel comfortable. You feel like you've gotten one up on the other group, like you're above them, like in terms of their play, even with the lead. And that's what's weird. Even if you get a bad start some games, you still get a lead, and you feel like you've had a one up on the other group, that you're playing better than them. Even though that may not be the truth. So I think that's important to put in front of you. But yeah, having a lead is important. Unfortunately for having a lead, it's not like you can say, okay, boys, we're going to get the lead. And it happens every night. You wish it could go that way. You want the lead, but you have to go out and earn it. And I don't know. I just don't. I think Boston is one of those teams. They got a lot of skill. I got some grit, but I really think that they really need to just get popped and somebody address the situation. Like, you know what, guys, everything we've done to try to beat this team hasn't worked. And we may as well, if we're going to see them in the playoff series, whenever round that would be, if we advance, may as well let them know what's coming. And there's no better time than the present today to go out and smash melt the beginning of this hockey game.
And go right off the head of the snake. Go right after guys like Pasternak and Marchand, right? Yeah. Immediately, if not sooner.
I wouldn't even worry about Pasternak. I'd go after Marchand because he's the guy where the energy comes from.
Yep.
And if you can get one of your guys, like a Hathaway, somebody else, or even a skill guy like a Konechny, get right up in his face.
Yep.
And and have Konechny say, you know what, dude, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I'm going to be better than you moving forward.
Yep.
Get right in his face. And that's a classic. I'm not saying fight. Just let him know, you know what? You're going to have a nasty afternoon today, and I'm going to make sure of it.
Yeah, you're going to feel this one in the morning kind of game, and get in on the forecheck on guys, get in on their D, on Charlie McAvoy, and really be physical with them. I agree. I think you got to come out.
Exactly what I'm talking about. McAvoy, like he's had it too easy.
You don't like getting hit. Yep.
Get in there and knock him right through the boards. Same with Carlo. Carlo's a good player. But they like to skate. Somebody goes in there and you run that McAvoy through the backboards early, you let them know what kind of an afternoon it's going to be. We used to do that with Yager. Like, I have people say playing, like, we'd have 8 guys saying, you know what, we're either going to knock this guy out of the game or he's going to be insignificant.
That's how they beat Bobby Orr.
That's what you do. You just run guys, you run them over, let them know it's going to be a real messy afternoon.
I remember Peter Laviolette in that 2010 run, Bundy, was let's chip pucks into Zdeno Chara's side and just lay on him. Hit him and lay on him. He hated it. And you could get him out. You could get him out of his rhythm that way, and their zone exits would. And there's a cumulative effect to that. Bundy, let me ask you about the turn. This Boston team, I think, has got a ton of identity. They know who they are. They play to it. This Flyers team has an identity. Yeah, they're a team that works really hard and that kind of thing. There's maybe some lacking of individual identity, and now's the time to really put your identity as a player to the forefront. Like you mentioned, Garnet Hathaway. He's a guy that's got a ton of identity to me. I know what Garnet Hathaway is. Everybody knows what he is and what he's going to do. There's got to be some other guys that are willing to go to the uncomfortable places, the places we don't talk about at parties. Like Jack Nicholson said. Some guys that got to reside there a little bit more often.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, that's absolutely right. And getting, that's where some guys earn it. Like Garnet Hathaway's not here because of his skill, right? His hands and his playmaking, scoring ability. He's here because He's a distractor, right? He's an energy guy. He's a penalty killer. He's a guy that does all the intangibles that you want guys that you need guys on your team to do to have success. But this is really a game, like, for me, I don't know why I even feel like driving in today. I don't play anymore, but I have a pretty good intuition of what kind of games are. And I really feel like this is a game the Flyers, like today, can really put a significant nail in their own identity for who they are. Totally. And with this many games left, like if you come out and you just smack the Boston Bruins today, I think you set yourself up really well for tomorrow, for the rest of the week, and to be quite honest with you, for the rest of the season. Because when you boil down who's been the great nemesis of this Flyers team in the last decade, it's been the Boston Bruins. And they've pounded this team in many regards. They've embarrassed them. And for once, I'd just like to see this Flyers group tonight say enough is enough. And really, no matter what it is, if you're going to lose, go out and lose by playing as hard as you can. Not dirty, not stupid, but finishing every check.
Hard. Yeah.
Being a real pain in the ass to play against. I think I can say that. That's legal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of felt like they started to establish that a little bit the other night in Carolina. Again, even though they were playing from behind most of the game, even though it would end up being an overtime loss, that third period for me was a bit of an establishment of, look, we're here. We don't care if you're maybe the hottest team in the East right now, which the Hurricanes might be. We're going to be here, and we're going to be a thorn for the rest of this run, whether we see you in the playoffs or not.
100%. That's exactly right. That's what Jason's saying too. Again, like the Flyers, when you look at them, they're known as a team that's. I'll tell you how teams look at the Flyers. When another coach goes in and says to the Flyers about the Flyers when they go in there, and they say, "Okay, boys, you got to be ready today because this team will work. They're gonna give it their all. They haven't given up all year. Don't be misled by the players they have out there. Don't look at it and say, oh, that guy's not a skill player, because this team has had success all year by forcing their will on a lot of other teams. But they haven't really smash-mouthed the Flyers. And I think that this team actually has the ability to do that, to just make life completely miserable for other teams every single night. Not just one, but I have a feeling today can be that game that sets the Flyers' identity for the rest of the year, if they can do it. It's what I want. It's not, I don't know what's going on in the room right now, but it's what I'd like to see. And if I were a head coach, I would tell these guys, like, I would have them ready to go through a concrete wall right now, because I really feel this is the game that's the most important hockey game of the year for this team.
Agreed. And it's not just because it's the next one.
It's not about 2 points. It's about everything involved with it.
Yeah, it's about the last couple of years. It's about a lot. It's you can kind of slaying a dragon in a way, and the team that's gotten you the most. And if I know, Bundy, if you were on that coaching staff, they'd walk into their stalls today and there'd be a T-shirt hanging there that says "Enough is enough, enough with this Bruins stuff, enough already."
Is enough. That's it. Yep. And I would be, but I identify this game as the most significantly meaningful hockey game that this team has played since the pandemic and the bubble. I mean that. That's how big this game is for me. And I said the 2 points are inconsequential. That's not true. You want to win the game, but the message you send out here today about the style you're going to play and the style that you're going to play until someone tells you you're not allowed to play anymore this year.
Yeah. Incidentally, that last game they played in the regular season in that bubble season was against the Bruins.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
Nice win, if I remember correctly.
Let's take a timeout. We'll come back with more Flyers game day. We'll give you the line combinations as number 14, the captain, Sean Couturier, draws back in. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Fargo Center as the Philadelphia Flyers get set to take on the Boston Bruins today. And let's get to our line combinations because the captain draws back in. Sean Couturier back in the lineup for the Philadelphia Flyers. And here's how things are laying out. Paling, Forster, and Hathaway. The second line, Frost, Tippett, and Konechny. Lawton, Farabee, and Brink. Sean Couturier centers Noah Cates and Ule Lixell. So Cates Bundy moves back to the wing, and that can certainly help defensively. And we'll have to see what their usage is, but that's a line that you can see as a line that could try and mitigate the damage of some of those top lines for Boston.
No doubt about it. And again, it gives you a little bit of, again, and we had Briere on before the show, and he was just saying to us, that, whatever role Coots is in, he's going to help the team. It'll be to look to help the team. And so that does give them some defensive clout. Cates was the guy filling in at center on that line the last couple games. This is a good game to get put Coots back in, much needed. It's a big opportunity, Saturday afternoon game against a terrific opponent. And it'll be interesting to see, Jace. I'm looking forward to seeing what that lineup provides. Who would you say you had on the top line again? I just missed the beginning of that.
Paling, Forster, and Hathaway.
Paling, Forster, and Hathaway.
New.
Yeah, that's a new one too. Yeah, so Delorier's out today.
Yes.
Correct,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, all right.
It was Paling, Hathaway, and Cates for a while as the set it and forget it line, but that's now changed just a smidge. Bundy, what did you? I saw in the game the other night some good penalty killing from Ronnie Attard and Adam Ginning, and they've looked real good together so far and haven't looked overwhelmed in any way.
They've been fine, and again, my attitude would probably be the same as the coaching staff. Is I see two guys just playing hockey, doing the best they can, and again, not to do too much, keep things simple. The easiest thing you can do as a defenseman when you're getting a chance to play and you don't have a lot of experience, play good hard defense. Make good hard plays in your own zone, and that'll endear you to the coach. And they're not asking them to do too much, and I think both players have not asked themselves to do too much, and I think that's made a difference. So I'm really excited about the game today. The Flyers look like they have everything they need to give Boston a much needed afternoon spanking here today. The Bruins again, though, I tell the team, be aware this is a team that hasn't been playing well lately. They beat the Flyers last week. I like the revenge factor again, much like the Toronto, the two home games here. But at the same time, be aware of Boston too, because you don't know when they're going to come out of it again. They lost 5-2 to the Rangers the other night in Boston, and that'll leave a sour taste in a team's mouth like that too. And believe me, when you look at Boston and you talk to people, there's still a lingering effect from that first round exit last year, from that monumental regular season they had. And believe me, things like that don't go away early. So I'll be assuring you that the Bruins will be pushing hard as well. And that's why I think this game has the makings to be hopefully a classic. I really mean that. This has got all the makings coming down the stretch. Two playoff teams, two teams needing points, wanting to get better. It's got a real flair to this one, and flair for the dramatic, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
And no doubt about it. The other D pairs, Sanheim and York, and then Zamula and Johnson. Sam Ersson gets the start today. Look, I imagine they're going to split the duties this weekend, 3 and 4, 5 and 7. Probably split the duties in goal today. It'll be Ersson versus Linus Ullmark for the Bruins. Bundy, what's your message for the first shift for each line of this game today?
Get the pucks in deep and forecheck. Exactly what I said. Smash mouth hockey, man. Get it in, pound it. Let the Boston Bruins know it's going to be a long afternoon. If they're going to win here again today, then they're going to be wearing ice bags out of the building if that's the case. Yeah,
it's the 23rd of March, and a game with all the marbles today as the Bruins take on the Flyers here at Wells Fargo. Stay tuned. Tim Saunders, Todd Fedora, countdown to face-off coming up. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.